Ti hei mauri ora, tēnā rā koutou katoa, e hono mai nei I tēnei pō. Kia ora to everybody who is joining us this evening. It is my absolute privilege to bring to you this live broadcast, which is myself. I'm Ninakaye. I manage my brother Tiki Taane, and he's going to be joining us in just a couple of minutes. But I just wanted to do a big mihi to everyone. And say thank you for joining us. We are streaming live across a few different pages this evening. We're streaming across the Tiki Taane page. Big mihi, what's up to everybody out there in the Tiki Taane world. This is the page that if you comment, Tiki and I will be able to see your comments in the platform that we are using this evening. We're also cross-posting to the Ninakaye page and also to the Protect Our Whakapapa page. Big mihi to you whānau as well. So I just thought, hey, what a great opportunity. We also got our 3MDI whānau, which is the Māori Music Managers Development Initiative whānau tuning in. And what we do on that page every week is have a live broadcast where we talk about music industry stuff. So I kind of thought it was my turn to set one up. Why not utilize my very own brother and artist to talk about something which a lot of people don't really know that he even dabbles in, which is production. All right. So most people know Tiki as a singer-songwriter, as an artist, but don't realize that he actually is a producer. And as his big sister, one of two big sisters, we know for sure that that has been one of his longest passions ever. It's actually been something that he's done for so bling and long, and he does it every single day. So really excited to be able to kind of get under his skin a little bit and talk about it, because actually in the last 20 or so years, I don't think I've ever heard my bro really talk about the production side of things. So without further ado, I would like to welcome him into our space this evening. Where are you, bro? I'm going to bring you in. Where you at, Pungle? Oh, mysterious guy. I saw you. There you are. What's up, Pungle? Beautiful. Tea bags. Wow.
Kia ora.
Hey, Jamma, bro. How are you?
I'm awesome. I've just been at the hot pools.
Oh,
so
nice.
Feeling
You're nice
good.
and chill. I love that suit, man.
Thank you very
much. Love that suit. Yeah. What does your swimsuit look like? Just asking for a friend.
Me and Rach have matching swimsuits. It's pretty cute, really. It's just like funky skulls that are really tiny, but they kind of look like tie-dye tripped out kind of things. And so she's got this bikini that she wears, exact same as my shorts. So
hot, bro. I can only imagine. Beautiful. What a striking couple you guys are too. Now, bro, so I'm really excited to be able to talk to you tonight about production, because you know, obviously that's something that you've been doing forever. So and whānau, if you're watching through the Tiki Taane page and have any questions, feel free to drop them in. I actually have 50 pages of questions here, but hopefully we're just going to smash them out really quickly for the bro. So the first one I wanted to ask you is, what made you get into production? How did you get into it?
The first thing, well, you remember when I started my band, I was 14, and the band was called Cultivation, and your boyfriend at the time was also the guitarist in the band.
Are we going to go there?
Oh, Willie J. So he was, that was your boyfriend. And he was in about, like, he was in so many bands. He was in, like, Love's Ugly Children, EST, a bunch of other things. So me and him started a band together called Cultivation, and he was already doing live sound. And so I just kind of, he kind of showed me the ropes a little bit. And then when we started playing gigs in Christchurch, I realized that, you know, we weren't going to make any money out of this band at all, which is totally cool. I wasn't in it for the money, but I realized the sound man or the sound person, sometimes the sound woman, Sands, if you're watching, she's out there, she was doing sound.
Yeah.
They were making the money at the end of the gig, right? So it'd be like 5 bands, and we'd all play, you know, 45 to an hour each, and we'd all pay the sound person like $30 a pop or $20 a pop. And so that sound person was walking away with, you know, $100 a night, easy. And so I was kind of like going, man, I need to learn how to do that. So that's what kind of triggered it, really. It was just kind of an interest in sound in general, but also just wanting to make a living. Because I'd left school by then. I was too young for the dole. I was 14, 15, 16, you know, that kind of thing. So I wanted to make a proper living out of this music thing. So that's what kind of got me into doing live sound. But then I discovered things like the studio, went into the studio with some of the bands. And they were all sort of punk bands back then, punk metal bands. So I started to understand or get excited by mixing these bands in the studio, recording them, and then being able to hear it back. And then
what studio was that, bro? Like back in the day in Christchurch, what was the studio that you used to kind of go to?
Yeah, well, the main one was the rehearsal space. It was a guy called Bob Burnett. And
yes.
Yeah, Bob Burnett. And so he had this rehearsal space in the tannery down in Woolston. And we'd hit that place up and play, but he had all this kind of gear as well that you could record. So we started doing demos there. And then some of the studios I was going to was Red Acoustics was one of them, Tandem Studios. Oh man, well, I mean, we're talking like early to mid 90s, you know, so I can't remember too much about it.
Can you talk about, because I remember you doing an actual course in audio engineering, eh? Is that right? Mata Waka or something?
Yeah, Mata Waka. But in classic kind of style, I was doing that around 16 years old, and it wasn't really a course that you would learn sound on. It was more like we were there just to kind of build the studios and do little bits. Yeah, just do little bits and pieces. But I was there. I did 1 year, and then the next year was a lot better because that's when computers started coming in. And my friend Pylons in Christchurch, he was the first real jungle drum and bass DJ that I ever heard. And so I started getting exposed to that stuff when I was like 16, getting exposed to jungle and early drum and bass and computers. And because before then we're just recording on analog gear, right? So it was like reel to reel tape, really, really, it was just old school. And then digital came in, computers came in, and then you could record onto computer and then you could cut it up and move it around. So I got really like buzzed out of that. So I was like 15, 16 when I saw all that kind of stuff. So
amazing.
Yeah, so that course was kind of shit. To be honest, it was shit. But
I don't have my Friday.
Yeah. But it was but it was cool because it was like a whole lot of like-minded kids. Like we were only kids back then, you know, 15, 16, 17, 18, all coming together. And from that, we kind of learned just little bits and pieces of each other, and all of us have gone off to do different things and music and stuff like that. So yeah.
Wicked. I was going to ask that if any of them are still kind of in the scene, you know, from way back then.
Yeah, just Pylons, DJ Pylons, you know, he started running RDU. Also that actually I remember now Hicks. Do you remember Hicks and Poss and Underground?
Yeah,
Underground?
Tanya in Poss. Yeah.
Yeah. So they were running workshops too. So that was really cool. So rest in peace Hicks. You know, so that was really awesome too. You know, learning stuff off that, and that was more like hip hop, soul, funk kind of stuff that you kind of learn. So there is little pockets in Christchurch back then where you could learn this stuff, but it's not like today where there's like proper courses, proper sound courses like SAE.
Still though, bro, for sure. I still think though, I was so lucky that you found that course and that you did that course, because otherwise, who knows where the hell you'd be right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, because I got something called the youth benefit or something by being on it. So extremely lucky, you know, like, so he was, you know, I don't know how much it was a week, maybe $160 a week, but back then was like woohoo, you know, like. did you think if you cast your mind back to 16-year-old Tiki, do you think
at that point you knew where you'd be right now? You know what I mean? Like, do you think you kind of, could you foresee a future for yourself, not only in production, but as an artist as well back then?
Well, I could see a future in being a musician and being a roadie and being a live sound engineer, because the production thing kind of came later on. It came when I hooked up Salmonella Dub, and then that kind of started happening there. But before then, you know, I'd been 16. It was more about just playing in bands, and also mixing live bands. So I didn't really think about the studio stuff. I just thought more like, yeah, I'm going to make a living and a lifestyle out of this music thing, just a live thing, really. And, you know, by the time I was 18, I was mixing nearly every band in Christchurch at the time. I was doing Thursday, Friday, Saturdays, Wednesday nights at I think it was Wednesday nights at a bar called, was it The Edge? Which is now called the Rock Pool, I think.
Oh, was that on behind by Cathedral Square, that one?
Yeah. So on Wednesday nights I'd mix a country and western band.
True, bro.
Yeah, I'd rock up like every Wednesday. It was like mix this country and western band, and then Thursday was Dole Day, so I'd mix all those grimy, you know, grimy punk metal bands. And it was always like Warner's. Thursday was down as His Lordship's, Warner's, Star and Garter. It was grimy. And
those were badass days.
Thursday was the big one. Then Friday was kind of, I started getting more into, that's when the DJ scene started kicking off. So I started mixing, doing sound systems for DJs and international artists that came over to New Zealand and played at the Ministry, you know. So I was busy Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturdays, and I was making some mad cash at 18 years old, mixing all these bands and all these things. And one of the main reasons why I got all that work was because a guy called Dave Wernham, our good friend Dave Wernham, Horsey. Yeah, so he was like, he's the sound guru, man. Like, I've learned so much off Dave Wernham, and so he's another sort of pillar in my career that I must give props to. So there's like Willie J, Jason Young, and then there was David Wernham, who's still in my life at the moment, you know, doing sound and sometimes helps me out to mix Shapeshifter and stuff. So he taught me so much. It really at us about live sound. And then he got picked up by Shehard and they toured Europe. So when he went away with them, I got landed with all this work, right? So I started mixing all these bands, Headless Chickens, Head Like a Hole came through. I was mixing your band, Ninakaye Snort. All-female punk band, by the way. If you didn't know that, everybody, Ninakaye was in possibly New Zealand's first all-female punk band. She was the bass player, and Carla Rotter on drums, Rita on vocals, and who was the guitarist? What was her name?
Joe and Sharon, the twins. Yeah, my girls. Props to my girls.
What was your most outrageous song? What was that called?
We had Yo Fatherfucker. That was a bit rude. We also had Hey Creep. We had Misogynist. Yeah, we had some pretty cool songs, man. It was wicked. I loved that. I loved that we just got to just let it all out like that. Bro, what was your first ever live gig? Who was your first ever live gig?
Like playing or mixing?
No. So at the moment, I just want to look at live production.
Oh yeah, cool. So mixing.
Yeah.
It was probably well, what happened was when in my first band Cultivation, we're playing shows with all these other sort of heavy metal punk thrash bands, and so Jason Young was doing a lot of the sound for all the other bands, and then he would play guitar in my band. So I would often sort of sit by him and watch what he was doing and help him out. And then sometimes he'll be like, "Oh, just take over," you know, and he'll go to the bar or go for a cigarette or whatever. And I'd just sort of jump on there and start mixing. So that's kind of how I really got into it. So it was probably one of those punk bands like Consummator or who else was back then? Delirium Tremors. Far out. It's not. Yeah, I about those ones. So long ago, you know. Yeah, there's some heavy bands back then doing some cool shit. So I learned how to mix heavy metal, rock, punk stuff. It was what I first started to do, mixing, yeah.
And then so with Salmonella Dub, how did that kind of come about?
Yeah, that came about because Andrew Penman, the guitarist plus manager plus sort of the dude who started Salmonella Dub. So they were around, what was it, 93? They would started up, 1993. And he got hold of me around 1996. So he had heard what I was doing. He was kind of like, oh, I heard this young dude who's been mixing, you know, mixing all these other bands and da-da-da-da. And because everyone's in the same kind of scene. So he gave me a call and said, you know, do you want to come mix us? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like I had heard of them, but I didn't really know their music too well. And I remember going to a party, I think it was called Liquidation. It was on Durham Street. It was at a warehouse. And it was, that was it. The first time I mixed those guys, I was like, what the fuck is this? Wow. Yeah.
Because did you even know dub music? Like, you know, had you, I mean, you didn't have the internet big. If we put it in perspective for the whānau watching, no internet, right? Couldn't Google dub, you know, what is dub? You couldn't do that. It was just like, so for you, yeah, did you, and we're talking pre-CDs, we're still using bloody tape cassettes and records, eh, bro?
Yeah, a lot of tape cassettes, a lot of records. CDs were just sort of coming in around that time. But I didn't know what dub was, but I knew, I mean, I loved reggae, of course. I loved reggae. I loved heavy metal. I loved hip hop because around, you know, there's a lot of good shit coming out at those times, you know, like the MWA, Public Enemy, Slayer, Sepultura, you know, some good stuff coming out. So I was schooled up in reggae, but I didn't really understand dub. I knew that it was a style of reggae, but I didn't understand exactly what it was. So, so mixing Salmonella Dub was a whole new education. What was this? I was taken to school basically. And
so what is it about dub? What is dub? You know, what's so distinctive about dub?
Well, dub, it means, it's short for duplication, and duplication means, of course, you know, more than one. And
double.
Double. Yeah. So dub comes about from, you know, in Jamaica in the 60s, etc. They'll do, on one side of the record, they'll do the single, which is a radio friendly kind of single, lots of singing, it's mixed nice, all that kind of stuff. And then they're like, well, what do we do on the other side? So they'll flip the record over, but the engineer would do a dub mix. So what they'll do is they'll do things like take out the vocals, turn the drums up, the bass up, add reverbs, delays, and dub it out. So they'll grab things like a snare hit, put it through a reverb or a delay, and then they'll go, they'll push things in and out. So that dub version was basically a mashup remix of the original version. So the Jamaicans pioneered remixing, and they pioneered bass music. They pioneered using the effects like they have. So we as human beings who listen to any kind of music that you like, especially bass-driven music, owe so much to the Jamaicans and everything that they invented and pioneered, which the rest of the world has taken and applied it to music and as a whole. So so I got schooled up big time. Andrew Penman would just send me so many cassette tapes and CDs and said, listen to this and listen to that. So I just kind of like filled my head and like a sponge, I just grabbed all this music and started to understand, or start to learn to understand what dub music was. And so I could try to apply that to when I was mixing Salmonella Dub. And then there was a guy called Mike Hodgins, who's from Pitch Black. And he's like the third person in the realm of all these guys that taught me stuff. But he was the one who showed me how to dub on a console like back here. So he showed me how to do it, what it means to do, add effects and manipulate the soundboard like an instrument. And so he basically he kind of like switched that light bulb on for me, and then I just took it and ran for it and realized, oh my God, I can do this stuff.
Yeah. And I love that, bro, because that's always been you on the desk. You know, it's just like this, you're just so passionate about it. That's why I really wanted to do this, because I know as your sister that production is actually, it's like your first love kind of thing when it comes to music. Like you're just, it's deep for you, you know, like you really, really love it. So let's say we'll go to you're mixing Salmonella Dub live, you know, you're doing that, getting into it, you get learning a lot about dub and everything, and you're like, yeah, you're starting to really fizz with all of that. And then you do For the Love of It, right? You smash out that song, and then Andrew and they go, whoa, this is pretty cool. This fella can sing as well as do stuff on as well as mix us. How did it feel for you when you're like in that position of mixing Salmonella Dub and being real thing about the sound, and then having to go up and perform? What was that whole buzz like?
Yeah, that's super. It was super intense because you know, I was learning on the fly. There's no one who can teach you that kind of stuff. No one can kind of teach you how to mix, set up a band, do sound check, mix the band, and then run up on stage and perform. It's quite a head, you know, it messes with your head a little bit, but it was awesome at the same time. I mean, Salmonella Dub during the album, Come In on the Drunken Monkey was the first kind of me jumping in with Salmonella Dub and mixing. So I mixed half that album, Come In at the Drunken Monkey. That was the first kind of thing I did of a band that was actually already really well established and had quite a good name for themselves. So for me, that was like an exciting time. It was like, Andrew was like, you want to mix this, you know? And I was like, oh, absolutely. This is incredible. You know, I get to kind of mix this band that's quite well established on this really freaky music, and then it gets released onto an album, which music videos are then made and all this stuff. So for me, that was like, you know, that was a step up from all the other bands that I've been working with, who are just kind of like, you know, punk heavy metal bands that just want to get wasted, drink heaps, and not do anything, you know.
What are you trying to say? So true though, so one-dimensional.
Yeah. Like Salmonella Dub just had more of a vision. They were more professional. Andrew was more driven. He had more of a goal, and he knew where Salmonella Dub wanted. He knew where it should go, and I was just like under his wing and learning and just soaking it all up, and then doing the best I can to help facilitate that. And then when that album dropped, and we went around New Zealand mixing it. It was heaps of fun. That was my first real big tour of New Zealand, going to all these places. Then we started working on another album called Kilovision, and they had a whole lot of demos on a tape. And Andrew sent me this demo, and it had like the For Love of It bass line, doom, 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 had that and a little drum beat. And then so I kind of grabbed that, and I started writing music to it and singing lyrics. And then I sort of showed the guys, and they were like, just record it. So we recorded it. We shot a video for it at the Gathering. And then we released it, and the song did really well. It started getting radio play up on the B-Nets and things like that. And it started to cross over just a little bit. It started to cross over just a little bit. And people sort of thought that I was the front man, because there was like, you know, this young dude, Māori dude with dreads, playing this kind of reggae-ish kind of thing. And so people sort of expected to see me on stage when they went and saw this band. So it was quite a full-on experience for me, because I was mixing the band for when they did a gig. Salmonella did a gig, the band were on stage, I was out front in the audience mixing, and so many people kept coming up and going, why aren't you on stage? When are you going to sing the song? And I'm like, I will at the end, you know, kind of thing. And then I'd run on stage, pick up the guitar, and, you know, and just sort of do the, was it? You know, I start doing that. And everyone's like, simplification of scare game. And play that, and then I did my one song. And
the one song wonder guy.
One song, man.
But then
it's an encore, and I don't have any songs. So I had to write more songs. Yeah.
Oh, bro, I remember that. And then who took over after you? Like, eventually you made that transition where you were like, where it was like, okay, you need to be up there all the time now as a frontman. And who took over sound after that for Salmonella Dub?
It was about 2 years. It was around year 2000, something like that, that I was actually sort of on stage full time. So we were using like often would be touring with Pitch Black, so it would be often Paddy Free and Mike Hodge would jump on the mixing desk, which was amazing because those guys are wicked. Or sometimes it would be Dave Wernham, old Horsey. We'll get Horsey on there. Rex Visible was another guy. Rex Visible, remember Rex? Who had Acme Sound. So he was another guy. And then finally, when I really jumped on stage full time, it was Dave Wernham who took over doing the sound. And then that was it. I didn't touch the soundboard anymore. I was on stage the whole time. But during that process, I was mixing Shapeshifter. They kicked off around 1999 was their first gig. And so around that time, I jumped on stage full-time as Salmonella Dub, but I just started mixing Shapeshifter. And so I had these things going on, and sometimes Shapeshifter would support Salmonella Dub. So I'd be mixing Shapeshifter for their gig, and then I'd jump on stage for Salmonella Dub. And so it became a really full-on lifestyle, but it was so much fun.
I remember, bro, like you were just pushing yourself to the absolute limit, like extending yourself in all directions. It's pretty phenomenal. And again, that's something that I think a lot of people out there don't realize is how, with that sound side of things, sometimes you were actually pumping and not only performing a gig in one night, but mixing a whole nother band in one night as well. With Shifters, let's talk about that a little bit. Like, sort of, I know that because that's a big passion for you, Shifters.
That's my love.
So everyone out there knows. And it is your love. The boys are your love. So in terms of me and managing Tiki, how it works is every year we wait for Shapeshifter's calendar to lock in before we then look at our own. This is how much, how important it is to Tiki that he puts his live production work with Shapeshifter before our own mahi with Tiki's performance. So you talk about that a bit, bro. Like,
yeah, well, the reason that is because number one, I mean, they're just beautiful human beings, right? They're lovely, lovely brothers, and we've all grown up. If you think about it, Sam from Shapeshifter used to come to my gigs when I was in the heavy metal bands, you know. So when he was a young grommet, he was coming with long hair, head banging, and going, Tiki, and then he started Shapeshifter, this instrumental live drum and bass band in 1999. And I think that was the first gig in 1999. And they were just instrumental back then. It was just four guys. Dreadford on drums, one of the most incredible drummers ever. Unbelievable drummer. And Nick on bass, Sam on guitar and samples, and then Devin Reno on saxophone and keyboard. So they were just like this instrumental band. So I could really use the dubby effects and things to really make this like have heaps more fun with this band. There's so much more room to do that kind of thing. And then also they were the only real live drum and bass band around. I mean, Salmonella Dub was dabbling in it in the mid 90s, dabbling in it and had some drum and bass songs going. But Shapeshifter were like, we're a drum and bass band, and they were just like really trying to crack it with that style. And so we kind of grew together over the years. It's been 21 years. So we've all grown together through so much together. We've been through the trenches together. We're playing the boys are playing a style of music and making a style of music that was not hot at all, right? It was so underground, and it was like in the dance music scene, drum and bass was like the naughty boys and girls music. It was naughty. It was like the gangster badass, dark,
rebels,
heavy rat bag of the EDM, the electronic scene. So it wasn't popular at all, right? So Shapeshifter wasn't making music to become popular, just in the scene. And you fast forward to now, 20 years later, and drum and bass is like huge. It's massive, I mean, I did a gig in Wellington with the Upbeats, and there was over 4,000 people there. You know what I mean? I mean, that's how massive it's gotten. And you're hearing drum and bass on adverts. You're hearing it just on the Edge. You're hearing it on sometimes More FM. You're just starting to hear that. But where it came from was the pits, the darkness, the underground grimy scene, you know. So, which, you know, I love that scene, you know.
Amazing.
So for Shapeshifter, yeah, sorry, sis, but for them to be part of that progress, and I've been there every step of the way. My heart and my DNA, my soul's also in that band as well. So that's why I put them first over my stuff, because I'm just part of it. I have to be part of it, and I want to be part of it, and I love it. And there's nothing more exciting when you're mixing your homies on stage with, you know, 10, 15,000 people around you, the biggest, most expensive sound system you can possibly get. And I've got full range of it. And I'm just going like that. It's like a monster in the sky, just going.
Beautiful. I saw Charlie Bronson. He was on the. He was watching before. So if you're there, Charlie, big props to you too, because he does LAB, right?
Yeah. So big up Charlie. So he was mixing LAB, and now he's doing LAB. He's doing an in-ear monitor mix on side of stage for LAB. Oh. And Richie's now mixing LAB up front, and Richie's also in kōrero, so it's a real family affair.
So, bro, tell us, for those of us who are completely ignorant about live sound, how many people are involved in live sound? Like, in one of the acts, like LAB shifters, you got a couple of sound people usually?
Yeah. So for example, Shapeshifter now, as we have it, so I do the front of house mix. It's called front of house. So I'm out the front in a little tent normally with a bunch of gear like this, facing the stage. So I'm in the audience, right? I'm in the center of the venue, wherever it may be, and I'm usually about 30 meters away from the stage. Next to me is Matt King doing the lights, and then behind him is usually Tim doing the visuals, and then I've got a whole lot of production guys around me who are looking after me, and it's their sound system. They're the ones that load it in. They do all the hard yards. They stick it up. They tune it for me, get it ready. I come in. I come in. Normally, this is how it works. So I come in with the crew, which is like Guy, my homie Guy, who's one of my best friends, who does my live sound. But he's the production man for Shapeshifter, and he does the in-ear monitor mix for Shapeshifter. So he's on stage. So we'll all roll together. There'll be Damien, the drum tech, and there'll be Aiden, the guitar tech, and there'll be Mike Cole, who's like the overall kind of tech guy that looks after all of us, right? So we've got a crew that all rolls in, lighting, everything. We usually get in there early in the morning. If it's a festival, get in there 9 a.m., 10 a.m. The sound system's already been there. It's been tuned, sounding good. They've run all the analytical stuff through this PA to make sure it's all time aligned and sounding good. So that when I get in, the first thing I'll do is just grab a microphone, usually, and I'll just start talking through the PA, and I'll start sort of listening to it left and right, going left and right, just kind of listening to it, seeing where it sits, because I use my voice because I know my voice so well. So I know when I talk through something, I know where the problems are in the sound system, right? So when if you think of a sound system as like a spectrum, so you got the top end over here. Oh, actually, this way. Sorry, back and front. So you got all these frequencies, right? We can only hear so much of this band of frequencies, and so what I'm doing is I'll listen to the sound system and I'll go, okay, if it's in a room, then you're going to get reflections off the walls, off the roof, off the floor. You're going to get all these weird reflections. So I'm talking into the microphone going, check, 1, 2. And the reason why we're going 1, 2 is because of the what, 1. You're going for the what, you know that, and the 2 for the t, t, t. So I'm checking the what and I'm checking the t. And then over the years, I've invented my own one, which is a, e, o, u, a, e, o, u. And so that's what I do now, because each syllable has a different kind of tone. And then I'm listening for those frequencies. Now, if there's something that sticks out at like like that, it goes and it's freaking out, then I'll find that frequency and I'll duck it out. I'll take it out of the sound system. And then I'll go e, o, and there'll be like this whoop, whoop, whoop. And I'll go, okay, I'll find that and I'll take that out. So my job essentially is to kind of make the PA sound system sound as good as I can, as flat as I can in that environment, whether it be outside, whether it be inside. It's always different every single time.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and every sound system's different too. These different sound systems that will project different kind of sound. So with Shapeshifter, we spec a certain sound system. Like it has to be D&B, it has to be VDOS, because we know that those are the best sound systems you can get. Anything else, you kind of have trouble with, and you kind of find that you're having to pull out more frequencies and do more work to get a better sound. So that's what I normally do. I start out like that, doing the checkity check thing, and then I check my effects, and then I check that the board is all lined up, that everything's coming through, and then we do a line check. So that means the drum tech will get on the drum kit, and I'll go, give me a kick drum. We'll do the kick drum, make sure it's going sweet, and do the snare, hi-hat, cymbals, go around everything. If there's any issues, like sometimes there might be something around the wrong way, or there might be a microphone that's kind of not working, so we've got to fix that. And then we go into the bass, go into guitars, all that stuff, and then vocals. And then the band arrive, and then we go, bang, we do a sound check, and the band play a few songs. They get their in-ear on the mix. You know, it's sounding cool. Yeah, Diggs is like, yeah, cool. Diggs is like, yeah, the vocals sound great. Yeah, cool. And I do the front of house mix thing, make it sound fat. And then we bugger off, have dinner, have a cuddle nap, have a shower, come back, and just smash
shower and shave. Yeah. Amazing. What do you reckon, whānau? I bet half of you didn't know any of that, right? This is amazing, bro. Thank you so much for sharing, because, like, man, so what you're saying is the best sound is going to be from where you're standing at any gig, if you're the sound person. If you want to hear the best sound, you'll go to where the sound person is, right?
Well, in theory, but some venues don't allow the sound man or woman or sound production to be in the middle of the room, because some venues are like, nah, I'm gonna push you over to the side by the toilet under the staircase, you know, because you kind of. So that's definitely not the best place to do the sound, to listen to sound. So generally, it's kind of in the middle of the room. In the middle of the room is probably the best possible place to be, really. So that's, you know, I mean, you've got all these variables. Like sometimes you'll be playing these venues where you can't be in the middle of the room. You're off to the side. So you've got to do a lot of running back and forth. So you've got to run into the middle of the room, listen, and go, right, and run back to the mixing desk, make adjustments, run back to the middle of the room and go, oh, run back and da-da-da. So often at gigs, you might see me running back and forth like a headless chicken, just trying to get it right, because it might sound completely different where I am. Say I'm next to a wall or under a staircase. There's going to be some weird bass trap there, some weird thing going on. You take 2 or 3 steps out of that and it's completely different. So you've got to kind of, my job as a sound engineer is to try and make it sound as good as possible in all areas of the room. Is the thing.
Wow. Respect the sound man. You're far out. Respect the sound man. So, bro, with Shapeshifter, so one of the things Shapeshifter is renowned for having the biggest, bassiest, loudest live sound, right? Let's just put it on the table. We all know that about Shapeshifter. So what I was wondering is, because is there a fine line that you walk at times in terms of pushing their sound? Because we all know about noise control and noise restrictions and things like that. Is there a fine line? And have you ever been shut down because of the phenomenally loud sound that you've been pushing with Shapeshifter?
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe not so much these days, because Shapeshifter is often the headline act. So when you're headline act, you can kind of do what the fuck you want, you know. So, but in the early days, yeah, we used to get shut down, or we got threats or things like that. There's always that nowadays. Like if you're playing outside, and if you're in a residential area, you've got to have, you know, it's this little game you got to play with the sound police people who kind of turn up with their little monitors, you know, their little noise reading thingies, and then they turn up at sound check, and then I'll go to the boundary and I'll take a reading, and they'll come over and say, oh, look, you're 5 dB over, and da 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 da, and you're like, oh yeah, cool, and you kind of play that game back and forth. But there are tricks. I'm not going to tell them, but how I can get away with making it really loud. Yeah, making it really loud without the sound police knowing. But yeah, I mean, we haven't been shut down, but we've had threats of being fined. We've had you know, things like that, and just really bad vibes from sound police who are just being really and it's a tough one because, you know, at the end of the day, I try to keep it, especially these days, I'm a little bit more mellower these days. Back in the day, I was like, yo, turn it up. But nowadays, I kind of go, oh, okay, cool. You know, I try to get it in the ballpark, and I try to be a good boy and sit it at the level that you're supposed to. But then the last 15 minutes, I just go, screw you, and turn it up really loud, because last 15 minutes, man, come on, man, you know, come on, like, just deal with it, you know. So, but the other thing also is, like, you got to, for me, everyone's got a different perception on sound, and every time I'll mix, I guarantee I'll get someone who comes up to me and goes, it's too loud. And then 5 minutes later, someone goes up and goes, it's too quiet. And then someone will come over and go, it's too bassy. And then someone else come over and go, it's not bassy enough. So it's like, fuck, you know, it's one of those jobs that you just can't really please everybody. Yeah. All I can do is make it sound fat and good for me. And if I'm vibing, then hopefully everyone else is vibing. Yeah.
Tiki's happy, everyone's happy. All right. Hey, so I see we've got a question from Mike Vitali. Kia ora, Mike. It says, do you use headphones, Tiki, when mixing? If so, which ones?
Yeah, cool. No, I don't use headphones because no one else in the audience has got headphones on. So I don't use headphones. So I'll mix completely using the sound system. There it is. I don't mix with headphones on because it doesn't really make sense because, yeah, as I said, no one else in the audience has headphones on. So why would you want to mix in headphones? The only reason why I'd use headphones is if I feel like I've got a problem. Like sometimes there might be a crackle coming down one of the lines. I'm like, whoa, what's that? So I get headphones and solo each channel and go, there it is there. And I'll say, look, the bass DI, it's got a crackle on it. And so I'll tell the system tech next to me, and he'll radio up to stage and he'll say, you know, channel 16, change the DI. So they'll run out, change the DI. I'll have a listen and go, yep, it's fixed it. And then we're back into it again. So that's the only time I'll use headphones, is just to check problems. Yeah.
Wow, bro. Next level. Can you just quickly tell me, so you're talking about the, you do front of house mixing and the little tent out in the audience or you know, underneath the wharepaku or wherever you are. And then you've also got like Charlie Bronson, who does the, for LAB, he does the stage sound. Yeah. And is there stage sound as well, or is that two different things?
Yeah. So for Shapeshifter, our homie Guy, he does the on-stage mix for Shapeshifter. So Shapeshifter own their own little mixing board that they rehearse through, that they do everything through, and then they use Sennheiser in-ears, so little in-ear sort of bud things that have been molded to their ears. Yeah, you got it. But they're, you know, they're super expensive, Ninakaye, not like your ones there. And they're actually molded to the cavity of the ear, so it's perfectly for them. And they got the little packs and they got their volume on that. So now Guy's job is essentially like what I'm doing, mixing, but he's catering to each individual artist on stage. So P Diggs, for example, he'll just want lots of his vocals and probably the band sitting just under that. So he'll get a lot of his vocals and the band, everything, all the band just mix under that. Now Sam, the guitarist, keyboard player, will have lots of guitar, lots of his keyboards, and probably lots of drums and hi-hat because he wants to be able to keep time. And he may not have anything else. And then there'll be Nick, who'll have lots of bass and maybe just a kick and snare in his mix. And then there's Daz, the drummer, who has heaps of drums in his ears, and he's got heaps of band, and he's got what you call a thumper. Like he's got this pack that he wears. It's like a backpack, and on this backpack inside it is a little wee thumper, and that it hits him in the kidney. So it's like every time he hits the kick drum, it goes bang on the back of his back. Or if there's a bass sound, it vibrates for his back. So he not only hears everything, but he feels everything. He feels it in his kidneys and stuff. So yeah. So he's got that going on. And then so Guy will be doing that. So Guy controls that, and each song will have different little wee bits that they've worked out. So one song, Guy knows that, oh, this part we need to put the sample up for everybody, and then this part pull it down. He knows that digs might need a little bit more vocal here and a bit reverb there. And little tricks like, because they're all wearing in-ears, so they can't hear any sound apart from what's going through there. So Guy will put up what you call audience mics, crowd mics. So he'll put crowd mics up. So he's actually, he's pointing at the audience, and he'll feed that into their mix so that they feel the crowd. They can hear the crowd. They can hear the crowd go, yay! Because if that wasn't in there, although they wouldn't hear anything, they'll just see people going.
Isn't this incredible?
And it's really weird when you're playing music and you're like, you can't hear anybody, and you're ugh. So that's what
enlightening, bro.
Yeah, so that's what Guy does. He does all that kind of stuff, and he makes the guys on stage. He makes their mix really, really awesome. And that's an art form in itself, because you're dealing with humans. You're dealing right there on stage with humans, and you've got five. Yeah, you got five people on stage, and sometimes they're all looking at you going. And so you got to kind of read the sign language and go, did he just point to the drummer and say up? Or did he point to the bass player and say up? So you got to guess, and you go, drummer, turn the drummer up. And he's like, no, like that. So you got to read body language.
Right. And because can Guy hear what they can hear or no? Not at all.
Yeah. So Guy can hear. So he can hear each individual mix of everybody. So he knows what Sam's hearing, P Diggs, Daz, so he can click through it all and hear what they're hearing, and and even
I was going to say, but in-ears is a very modern, more recent technology, right? Prior to having the ability to have in-ears, we didn't have that, and it was all monitors, right? On the stage, you had your feedback, your foldback monitors, and so Guy would have been mixing the monitors, which are like speakers that, that are turned towards the band, and that's how P Diggs and everyone could hear, right? So, and a lot of bands still do that now. So in-ears is actually it's more of a top range kind of big bands, big gigs kind of level headlining act.
Yeah, it used to be. It used to be 25 years ago. It used to be. But nowadays, so many people, it's cheap now. The systems you get are quite cheap, and everyone can use it. Me personally, I don't use them. I just use the old school wedges on the ground, turn them up and hit me in the face, because I like the energy of it. I like the loudness of it, and I like to hear the room. I like to hear the crowd in the room, and I don't like having things in my ears and a pack stuck to me because it falls off because I'm moving around a lot. And it's just really annoying. So me personally, I don't use in-ears. And then some people will just pop one out, like P Diggs will often sing with one in, one out, and just kind of, so because he likes to hear the room as well and everybody. So that helps him. But Shapeshifters still have monitors, but they've got just a little bit of sound going through them, just a little bit, just to kind of make the stage vibey. Because if I don't know if if you've ever been to a concert out front, you get all the full sound, right? You get each instrument, it's woohoo. But if you jump on stage, all you'll hear is the drummer. Yeah. And the bass player will be rocking out, the guitar's rocking out, the singer singing, but you can't hear them at all because it's all in their ears, right? And so it creates a really weird vibe on stage. It's like a very quiet, clinical, quiet stage. So it's nice to put a little bit of sound on stage just to kind of get that vibe, get that energy happening. And
so who looks after that then? Who looks after the monitors now? The big guy is doing that. So he does monitors.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool. Like back in the day, it had to be my job. So I'll be out front, and I'll be mixing the sound coming through the speakers, but I'd also have to do their monitor mix. And so it was really tricky. You kind of like looking at the band, and someone will say, and from the crowd, and you're looking at them trying to read it for thousands of people. You're trying to go, wow, turn it. So you got to try and turn these things up and do all these things, and it's quite stressful. But I'm glad I went through that because it elevated my skill set, and then and it made me perform really well under stress and pressure, because it's really stressful and there's lots of pressure. And you know, I've done monitors before as well. I've been on side of stage and I've done monitors for a band, and the drummer hated me and he threw a drumstick at me because he said that his monitors sound like shit. He's playing the drums, it was like, fucking sounds like shit. And I'm like, what's wrong, man? I'll fix it for you. It just sounds like shit. And I'm like, what's wrong, man? Can I fix it? And he's like, threw a drumstick at me. I'm like, fuck, what's this guy? And so I was running up there and checking it. I was getting other people to check it. Everyone's going, it sounds fine. What the fuck's he on about? But we found out that, you know, he was a junkie and he didn't get any smack. So he was really just grumpy and pissed off.
Oh man.
It was a super grumpy. And
this is real talk.
Like, yeah.
Real talk. Oh, classic, bro. So, and you know, I had intended on getting onto studio stuff, but I'm looking at the time, and we've almost talked for a whole hour. So I'm like, can we come back another time, and can I talk to you another time about studio production side of things?
Yeah, absolutely. Talk about all the stuff behind me.
Yeah. So for now, it's just the live's been pretty amazing, and we definitely want to get in some insight into the studio side of things and some of the.
Is there anybody actually watching?
Yes, there's like at the moment there's about 108 people.
Hey.
There was way more than that before. No, can you not see on the side?
Nah,
can you not see all the comments? Oh, sorry everybody. Only I can see them. But anyways, so now before we finish up, a couple more minutes, I just wanted to ask you. So, as an artist, this is for any artist starting out. Is it necessary to have your own sound engineer?
Yes.
Yeah.
So yes, absolutely. You know, the thing about when Shapeshifter started out, they were getting hardly any money at all, but they were certain that they had to have me, and they wanted the best sound that they could possibly get, and that they'd spend all their money on production. Like I'm saying, all their money. They'll spend it on me and the production. They were like, to spend it, make it big. So that's how they got the reputation of being this badass sonic live band, because they didn't want to skimp on production. They were like, nah, if it's going to cost us that and we're not going to make any money, just do it. So they, from the get-go, were like, it's all about that live sound impact. And if you're in a band, you're starting out, you've got to get a sound man, and you've got to, or woman, sorry about that, sound person, absolutely. There's some incredible sound women out there, actually, to be honest. There's amazing ones. So get yourself a sound person, and get them involved in your band. Get them, you know, especially the young ones. The young ones are really keen and up for it, and they'll come to rehearsals and they'll be, you know, and they will start to understand your music, and they'll start to understand how to mix dynamically. Like I'm a real dynamic mixer, so with Shapeshifter, often I'll pull things out of the mix. I'll sometimes pull the drums right out of the mix, so you can't even hear the drums, and it's just the band. And then I'll just go slam, and I'll slam the drums in on a drop, so it's dynamic mixing. So all of a sudden you're getting a wave of energy just going poof, and you can physically see the audience just go whoa, you know, things like that. So if you get a sound person who starts understanding the songs and the music, they can start doing things like that and manipulating the sound to make it more dynamic, to make it more impressive, to make it more resonant and transcend and connect, and make it more of an experience for people who are there. Now, if you didn't have a sound person, it's just be someone local or someone who's in the venue who'll just kind of set it up and just kind of leave it. And your gig will be very flat. It'll be very flat. There won't be any highs and lows. It'll just be flat. And you'll be playing your heart out, rocking out, yeah, but it'll just be kind of like this thing, right? So, but if you had someone who knew the music, they could go whoop, 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 and make all these dynamics, make it exciting, and you'll notice the difference in the crowd reaction as well. So absolutely, if you're in a band, and you're starting out, try and find a keen young sound person who wants to do it for the love and who wants to learn, and get them involved early, and they you know, it will work wonders for you down the track. Absolutely.
Oh, amazing, bro. It's been such a choice session. You've just given us so much. I loved it, bro. And so we'll definitely, I think we might have to do, we're going to do this again, Whānau, because I see we've got big Sema going, oh man, we're just warming up. And and we got lots of other questions there too about how do we go being siblings and doing in professional, personal. Basically, it's just that I'm the boss and he has to do what I say. So, you know, it just works like that. But yeah, there's plenty more we can talk about. So we're going to have another sibling chat some stage for you fellas. Yeah. And thank you for joining us again. I hope you guys learned something from this. Holler on the live stream. You can chuck some stuff up there and I'll get to you later on. But
I'll play some outro music. I'll play some outro music.
I was going to say, could you please play us some outro music?
Are you going to fade out or something?
Oh, I'm sorry. Slacking off.